Welcome to Random Conflux, where today
it's going to be random for once. It's not going to be any particular topic. We're going to add tags to this video down in the description so you can get the initial idea of what you're about. But if you want to hear a specific topic, just listen to the whole thing.
The older topics usually devolve into that anyway, whether we try to or not.
Exactly.
we try to stay somewhere on topic, but this is gonna be really off the rails. So
today we've got.
I'm Zach.
I'm Matt.
And I'm John.
And on that note, let's start with our first topic.
This giant container of nuts that I'm holding.
Yeah.
Continue.
Anyways, off of that note, let's go ahead and talk about something. Video game remasters.
Yeah.
I recently downloaded and I've started playing the Dead Space remaster. They called it a reboot, but it's really a remaster. They've added a bit more equipment to the game, some more enemy variety, a few more lines and dialogue and different camera angles. So, I mean, yes, it is the original game, all hyped up for the new consoles, but it's a little bit more than that, too.
I think I went in depth in one of my other videos. I think it was the second to last one before this one. And me and JJ explained, well, more or less the differences in how even game producers really can't tell the difference between if it's a remake, a remaster, or even a simple remodeling of a game.
Like you said to you, like a game that's ported over to another console is more of an upscale than a remaster. But when they do something to expend it, it would be more, you consider that a remaster.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I've only played, 2 hours of the new Dead Space, and I can already tell it's different in ways.
Yeah.
However, as an example, when they redid Gears of War for the new consoles, okay, that was a shot-for-shot redux of the original. Now, they moved a couple, of environmental things to make it easier to traverse. That was it. I played the whole game through, and it was the same game. It just looked better. That is a reboot, in my opinion. But a remaster is when they've changed things, enough things, to make it different.
Yeah.
Well, with me, that's just like an upscaling of that game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With me, the best example I can give is Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time Master Quest. Mm-hmm. It's the same game, but the only thing that's changed is like how you perceive the dungeons, where some things are in different locations or backwards. It's the same game for scale, but there's minor changes. To me, that's a remaster.
To me, that's less of a remaster and more of a remix. It makes any sense.
Different words for different things.
Yeah.
Now, the 3DS version would be more of a remaster.
That would be more of a scaling.
To you?
Yeah. Because you're scaling it to a different console.
Since we're spreading out into random things, what's your favorite Legend of Zelda game? Go.
I'd say Ocarina.
Ocarina.
Okay.
Well,
With me, it's like Ocarina and Majora are like equal to each other. Depends on which I'm in the mood for, but those two.
with me, it's Ocarina and Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild's good.
Okay. For me, it's Ocarina or Twilight Princess. I really like both of those.
Twilight's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that assumption.
Yeah. And the only reason we don't have Breath of the Wild on the channel is, unfortunately, the cartridge got lost. It's a long story, but
Yes.
Very long story.
My child was involved. Anyways.
I wasn't gonna say it.
With me, I wanted to talk about toxic work environments.
Yes.
in the last episode, me and JJ were talking about what it's like doing an independent production and working with a small team, and what happens if the team doesn't work. Like, we work good together, but there's times where one of us is slipping. Yeah. And that's with any other environment.
There's times when we argue too, and usually it's over dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of times that I'm not here for all these videos. It's hard for me with my kids and my wife and things that are going on in my life to get a chance to record and be a part of these videos. You know, we started this channel together and we want to keep going together, but it's so much easier for the two of these brothers to get together and record than it is for me to be there. But I want to be there when I can.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to say about the topic I'm bringing up is the fact that sometimes people can take what you say as toxic, but people need to realize the difference between what's really toxic for a work environment and when you're trying to get someone's head out of their bum. And sometimes you kind of gotta be that support to help each other.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you don't, there's no growth. And when it comes down to that, it comes down to those people.
Are you saying that sometimes a aggressive attitude is justified if it means you're trying to help the other person?
Not really aggressive, just more along the lines of just trying to make them remember what motivated them in the first place and help keep them in that direction so that they don't lose that motivation.
Now, there's something to splice off of what you're talking about. I've got my own things to go back and talk about toxic work environment, but on that note specifically right there, motivation. Okay? For example, two of us specifically, and no offense to you, Zach, but John and me, we have had a hard time drawing over the past couple of years. John has had many projects with Zach that he's wanted to do that involve drawing, and I have wanted to just get back into drawing in general because that's what I did. When I was 2 years old, I was drawing, and I had, all my life, I had almost as many notebooks as I had toys, okay? Just drawing and drawing and drawing things. And something that is so hard to do nowadays, I've got this slight tremor to my hands that's there sometimes, it's not always there, but it's enough that when I start focusing and trying to draw, the tremor comes back. And it's just, I'm in my 30s, I've got issues, and I'm not going to quite be the way I ever was before. And that motivation knocks me down. Now, my daughter, she's 6, she wants me to draw with her. I'll try to draw, and I draw something that looks like it's on her level. Now, for her, she draws amazingly well for her age. But for me, I'm only drawing something on a 6-year-old level, not on the level that I should be. And it's disheartening. The motivation isn't there anymore. And I want to get that motivation back. I want to be able to draw again, and I want to be able to help because John here has mentioned that my drawings inspire him and his drawings inspire me. I draw very stick or stoic figure-like, like statuesque, like a character concept. That's more my drawing is character concept, while his drawings more seem like they're in motion, like you'd find in a comic book. Yeah. Okay, so it's just very difficult to find the motivation when I feel like the lack of skill is missing in what I used to do.
And I can understand that too. Like I see myself slip a little bit.
But here's something from my point of view, Jay and Matt, and people listening on YouTube. I have a very similar problem when it comes down to me drawing rather than having my brother draw.
Okay.
When I was helping someone clean gutters on the roof, I fell, banged up my shoulder. And ever since then, my whole right arm has been giving me problems. You know that.
Yes.
Jay knows that. And it's one of the reasons why I can't really sit down and draw. I get frustrated the moment I make a mistake. And with drawing, you have to have a steady rhythm to your life. And to me, having JJ make the base models that I go by when I'm working on my characters, and then having him go and ink what I've already done, because it's so much easier to do the pencil and the most layout and just have him finish it. Because to me, at least that one part is done, and all he's got to do is just ink it when he's got time. But when it comes down to getting the base model, I actually prefer his base models over my own, because to me, I never look at my drawings as good enough. Where I respect my brother's drawings, but I want my brother to get more motivated. But what I was saying is, I actually respect my brother's drawings, and to me, they're better than what I can do. I may end up doing my character's outfits and that kind of stuff, but like, that's why I want JJ to be the person behind doing the animation and the drawing in general, because I just respect his drawing.
Sorry, that's my phone. It will buzz randomly. Don't worry about it.
And to me, when I'm trying to get JJ motivated, it's more, I want him to remember why he got passionate about drawing in the first place. Mm-hmm. And I don't want him losing that.
Yeah. And multiple reasons. One was like depression for a while. Part of it's my hand messing up. But then again, like you said, your shoulder bugs you all the time.
Yeah, and you would do the same thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
But a toxic environment, and we've all had some sort of toxic work environment. If it's acting, if it's running a store, or whatever. You yourself know when your co-workers are being toxic, because they're not trying to lift you up. They know you're down, and they try to bring you down more, and they know what they're doing is bringing you down.
Yeah.
And that's the type of environment that I'm not really okay with. And if I was in a situation where I was being toxic to my brother, I would want him to say something. Or if I was being toxic to a friend, I would want them to say something. Because I don't think any of us would want to be in a predicament like that.
Yeah.
So, something I wanted to bring up, okay? Because I briefly mentioned, I do want to go into the toxic stuff on this topic. So I'll lead into this right afterwards. I'm going to do a little bit of self-promotion in the hopes that maybe the interest will help me ahead. On Deviantart, no, we are not funded or supported by them. The name, all lowercase, flaminginferno. There is only one deviation, one art up there. That is John. And then the name with capital E&G, emeraldgrizzly, is me. I have 200 some odd pictures on there. Feel free to check them out, give opinions, we'd appreciate it. Now, however, getting back into toxic work environment.
Well, can I say something real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
I will be putting that information in the description.
Yes.
Or cheat sheet.
Yeah, links to it, definitely. And thank you. For toxic work environment, my earliest example of a toxic work environment was when I was in Thespians in high school. Now, some people say this is true grit. Some people say this is the way it's supposed to be. Okay? I'm not going to use any names. I'm not going to talk about where I went to school. All I'm going to say is I was in 9th grade Thespians, and there was a woman who was the alumni of the school who came in to help, okay, with the productions. And she was very critical of everybody, okay, and not very nice to get along with unless you were somebody who was an aggressive person naturally, okay? So, and I'm trying to use very light terms. I could use other words, but I'm not going to.
She thought she was better than everyone else.
Yes, and there's a certain word that starts with the letter B that comes to mind when I think of her, but I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so needless...
Banana.
Yeah. So, yes, banana. So needless to say, there was a quote-unquote, according to my theater instructor, there was a famous story about her where in this story, her father was on his deathbed and they were doing a production, okay? And during this production, she stayed away from his deathbed because the show must go on. And that to me is toxic, because you can have shows all throughout your life. You can have production after production after production. It's not like it was Broadway. It was a high school production. And it was the first show of several that she was going to be a part of the same showing. And she could go see her father for that one before he died and then come back and go to the others. But she encouraged anyone who had any personal family issues to ignore them for the sake of the show. Now, some people say, oh, that's dedication to the arts. And to me, I say, that's toxicity.
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here and say that maybe that's her way of coping, but still in all, like, if you're trying to push other people to not feel anything at all, that's toxic. Like, if you're looking down on someone all because they feel sad about losing a family member, and if that person doesn't care enough to, like, feel anything for losing their family member, I know that there's a psychological disorder that has to do with that, and I may put it down in the description, maybe. But that's just, I wanted to play devil's advocate, but like,
it's one thing to be committed to your job, but
yeah,
your family comes before your job, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And now, in this particular case, they had a good relationship with their father, too. It wasn't like the guy was rude or mean or a horrible person, and she was just choosing to let him end on his own terms or anything like that. No. She wanted to see him. But, yeah. So. And, like, again, I'm not using names or anything. I don't want anything connected back to anybody, so that's just...
Well, then, yeah, like, she could have taken that chance to see him.
Yeah. Other examples of toxic people in the work environment. I used to work at a game store that you might stop at, okay? And during my time there, I eventually became a key holder, which was essentially a manager without being called a manager. You know, could open and close, handle the money, all that good stuff. And one of the things I encountered was seasonal employees who would come in, and what they would want to do is they'd want to do something that customers would want to do all the time. They'd want to stand there and talk about the video games for hours on end. Unfortunately, the way that our bosses / corporate worked was they wanted us to have you in, take care of you, sure, talk about the video game a little bit, get the sales, and make sure you're good to go, and all of that in the span of 5 to 8 minutes.
And you had a lot of sales when you worked there. Heck, you've talked me into buying games when you worked there before.
Oh, yes. There was plenty of times where people came in wanting to, and I'm not trying to brag, I'm just being honest. People came in wanting to spend $200 and left spending $500, you know. That's just the kind of person I was, and very charismatic. But the point is that I started off working there as one of those people that I wanted to stand there for 20 minutes and talk about a video game with a customer, okay? When in truth, I really should have been only doing it for 5 minutes or so. And that sort of toxic environment in the sense of that you just didn't stop. You couldn't stop. And they were more worried about, oh, I want to make sure this one person knows what the game's about. I want to tell them all the things about it. No, give them enough to let them get into it, and then let them figure it out for themselves.
Yeah. And the opposite is true, too. If you didn't think a game was appropriate for a young kid, you would tell the parents, like, hey, this shouldn't be a...
Yep. Like, for instance, we got to the point where we were just letting parents know what the rating said on the back of the game.
Yeah.
You know? Like, oh, like, little kid, obviously, like, 8 or 9 years old, brings up a copy of Grand Theft Auto 5. The parents like, yeah, I want to buy that. Like, okay, miss, just let you know, this game's rated M for blah, 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 blah. Is that okay with you? Yes, it is. Okay, thank you. And needless to say, that's how the parents were. And
the opposite was true, too. Like, you, when you explained it to them, it was like, oh, my kid shouldn't play this. But
most of the time they wanted them to do it anyways.
Yeah.
But that's getting more off topic than there. But what are some examples with you in toxic work environment?
Various things. Like, there's been times where I've had good and bad bosses, obviously. I'm sure you've had the same.
But what are the bad examples?
Oh. A lot of times, like I said, I don't say any names, but there's employees that either didn't show up for work or didn't call for any and just didn't show up, or there's been times where like they've been over like an hour late and then expected me to come in early. It's like it doesn't work like that. Now if they call ahead of time, it's fine. Like there's reasons you're late. It's just
But doing it like every day, that's just...
No, it shouldn't be every day.
Yeah.
Like, there's exceptions to that. Like, there's this one lady who had to get her kids on the bus, and she couldn't come in until 8. Her shift would have started at 7. That I was okay with. That was clear with the boss and everything. But that was okay. But, like, there's people that would just be late consistently without any, like, give. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember one time I was on set. It was me and a buddy of mine. We were on set. He got the part, I didn't, and I was helping him work on his lines, and the director didn't really like me being there, but I got permission from the actual owner of the production to be there. Because I was providing company for a kid actor.
What was the toxic part?
The director just did not like me being there. The toxic part of that is the fact that the director just did not like me being there. He thought if you weren't an actor or if you didn't get the part, then you shouldn't be on set at all.
It didn't matter that you were providing support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and that same director got overruled by the main person in charge of the production. The producer. And he's like, hey, you want to help out? And I'm like, yeah, sure. He's like, well, we need to make a cast of such and such's body so we can have them on display. And I'm pretty sure you probably know what show I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's fine. We won't say it.
But to get the director off my back, the producer actually let me fill in for him to do we had to sit there and just not move while we were having like a mold of our bodies taken. If that makes sense.
So they had like a second cast to do more things. Makes sense.
No, it's not that type of cast.
I know what you're talking about, like a mold for making things. That's what I was talking about.
That way we could get more done in a shorter time span.
Yeah.
So, what other topics did you guys want to talk about?
I know we were talking about video games previously, kind of doing a follow-up to our first topic, art. And we've talked about video games being art, but would you say that's more so or less so recently?
What do you mean?
Like, do you think that video games are getting like more artistic and like how they're designed and?
If you go to indie games, absolutely, okay, because indie games are allowing artists that normally wouldn't get a chance at doing anything, or that are just concept artists, to do main video game art themselves, okay? And sure, there's a lot of people out there that are like how I used to be, or graphics whores, somebody that we want to see the cleanest cut, the highest detail, so on and so forth, that it's just being drawn in very cartoony or illustrative ways, but it's still a video game getting done. And as a result, indie games in general are giving people who, for example, there's a game that I'm going to go ahead and say the title of, but of course we're not, financed by or supported by or anything, called RPG Maker, okay? Highly, highly recommend on PC. Anybody get a chance to look at that, do so, because you can literally build an 8-bit game from the ground up, or a 64-bit game from the ground up. And sure, you can put all your own music or popular music into it, and there are literally conventions about you taking it to there and seeing if it can get made. And Microsoft and Sony and other big name companies go to those conventions to find talent. And that's where a lot of the indie games come up. Like, for example, oh goodness, I can't remember the title of it. Limbo on the Xbox and on PlayStation. That was one of those games. It was a game where the whole game you play the silhouettes. So,
I saw
what you're
that.
saying. Yeah. Okay.
Funny story about that.
Yeah. It was one of those games.
Yeah, it was either one of the developers for that studio, just to see if he could do it. He made a port of Limbo to the Commodore 64.
Oh wow.
And it doesn't look as nice, but it's still the full game. It's kind of.
I could see that.
Well, wasn't Life is Strange a very similar game when it first started?
It wasn't made in RPG Maker, but it was an indie game, I think.
It was an indie game, but Life is Strange got a lot of support behind it early on in its development. So it went from being an indie game halfway through to being a main title game. Yeah. And now it's got a sequel out, doesn't it? Or it's coming out with a sequel?
It's got a few sequels.
It's got a few sequels.
Okay.
I've played Life is Strange 1. Captain, I forget what it's called, but it was in between 1 and 2, and I played Life is Strange 2.
Okay.
Good games.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, like, I'm not dogging like AAA games because they are good, but there's a lot of ways that sometimes indie games are better because it allows more creativity. You're not stuck to doing what the publishers want.
Exactly.
Well, with that being said, I've been Zach.
I'm Matt.
I'm John.
Like, subscribe, comment down below. As always, these conversations keep going, and maybe we'll just have another topic like this. Probably in the near future. Say goodbye, Vegeta.
Vegeta's gone. It's only Zarbon now.
Oh, God.
My.
Oh, wow.
Oh my.